Okay, we can start.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our gaveliers, counselors, parents, and Toastmasters joining us from across the globe. A very special welcome to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Mike Carr, the 2020 World Champion of Public Speaking. Welcome to this GYGC educational session. My name is Krishna M. Prashant. I'm a 10th grader and I've received various achievements in art and literature and was a finalist for the National Public Speaking Championship 2025. And I have the honor of serving as the sergeant at arms for today's program. It is truly a pleasure to be with you. Our session today is on the topic, increasing confidence and preparing for contests. Together, we will explore practical techniques to strengthen self-confidence and discover valuable strategies to excel in contests. Before we begin, it is my privilege to introduce our global chairman, distinguished Toastmaster Sri Kumar Pai. DTM Pai is an assistant professor at ASADI, the Asian School of Architecture and Design Innovation, MG University, Kerala. With more than 3 decades of commitment to education and communication, and over 21 years of active leadership in Toastmasters International, he has served with distinction, including as Club Growth Director, where he was recognized as Best Divisional Governor and honored with Excellence in Club Growth Award. A passionate mentor and visionary leader, he has sponsored 17 new Toastmasters clubs and 55 Gavel Clubs, empowering countless young minds. As the chairman of GYGC, he continues to inspire youth worldwide through initiatives such as the Global and National Junior Championships. His contributions have also been recognized internationally, including by the Ministry of Tourism, Government of Oman for outstanding service. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming our global chairman, distinguished Toastmaster Sri Kumar Pai.
Thank you, Krishna and Prasad Gavalier, for a wonderful introduction. Chief guest and our speaker for the day, Mr. Mike Carr, respected counselors, Gavaliers, Toastmasters, and friends. A very warm welcome to this GYGC educational session. GYGC, the Global Youth Gavel Clubs, is an international network of Gavel Club councils with over 200 clubs across the world, from the USA to Australia. Organized into 12 groups led by dedicated leaders, we work together to nurture young voices, conduct contests, and proudly host the annual Global Youth Championship of Public Speaking. As a part of our vision to educate, inspire, and empower, GYGC regularly hosts global experts for sessions on diverse and meaningful topics. Today's session, increasing confidence and preparing for contests, comes at a perfect time with the Global Youth Championship semi-finals approaching. We are truly honored to have with us Mr. Mike Carr, economist, entrepreneur, international speaker, and the 2020 World Champion of Public Speaking, to share his wisdom and insights with us. On behalf of GYGC, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Carr for accepting our invitation and for being with us today. Friends, let us seize this opportunity to learn, grow, and enjoy. Now it is my privilege to invite distinguished Toastmaster Manjuke Manohar, Global B Group Chairperson, a multi-award winning author, coach, TEDx speakers coach, and Amazon best-selling author, to formally introduce our distinguished speaker. Please join me in welcoming distinguished Toastmaster Manjuke Manohar. Over to you.
Thank you so
DTM.
Thank you so much, distinguished Toastmaster Sri Kumar Pai. 2020 was a harrowing time. But there's always a silver lining, isn't it? 2020 also gave us Mike Carr, the world champion of public speaking. In fact, I had the privilege of meeting him directly in person at Chennai. And I had this doubt, the niggling doubt at the back of my mind. Would the world champions who's won in the online contest or the 2020, the COVID lockdown contest, would be as good at networking? My God, Mike Carr is a master of networking. You should have seen him. If you had joined early, you would have seen him, the way he connected with all of us, asking us, do you love cricket? And people were sharing about cricket. And then he showed us a cup which he got at the Austin, uh, the club where he's part of. He's playing football. Isn't that marvelous? The way he networks seamlessly with people. He's an economist, entrepreneur, and international speaker with a passion for leadership and communication. He launched his first business at the age of 14. I'm not at all surprised. I wouldn't be even surprised if someone said, he started his business at the age of 4, because that kind of expert he's at winning people over with persuasive communication, not just on stage, in person. The amazing humility with which he posed for photos with random strangers at the district conference, mind blowing. Hats off to you, DTM Mike. He has been deeply engaged in finance and economics ever since. Over the years, he has worked with a Texas state representative, 2 US senators, and 3 global financial firms, while also founding and managing several small businesses. Mike currently serves as a partner at FMP Wealth, a private financial firm where he helps clients navigate complex financial landscape. You may not know the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but you do know Mike Carr. So, Gaveliers, note that company name FMP Wealth. The moment you start earning, maybe you might want to contact Mike Carr for something else, not just for public speaking mastery, maybe to learn the secrets of wealth mastery. He's widely sought after as a keynote speaker, addressing organizations worldwide on topics such as economic outlooks, leading teams through uncertainty, and building resilience for the future. In recognition of his communication excellence, Mike earned the title of World Champion of Public Speaking in 2020, standing out amongst 30,000 contestants from 146 countries. If we all could stand, we would have given you a standing ovation, Mike, because that was, I would say, a very dark period in the history of humankind. And during that epic time, you still came out a winner from 30,000 contestants. Humongous achievement. Beyond his professional endeavors, he has led some of Texas' most successful teams, his favorite being his family of 10. In his personal time, Mike enjoys hiking, studying Stoic philosophy and Japanese history, and indulging in the humor and wisdom of Calvin and Hobbes. I have a humble request to Mike Carr. I would request him to probably author a book on wealth mastery for Gaveliers and Toastmasters. This is just a request. Now, the stage is all yours. Mike Carr, the World Champion of Public Speaking 2020. Let's give it up for Mike Carr.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, my wonderful family all around the world. It is such a pleasure and so humbling to be able to be with you on, if you can see how it's becoming morning here in Austin, Texas, in the United States. And I know it's becoming more evening around the world as you go. I've been asked to tell you a little bit about my story about growing confidence and preparing for contests. I want to start out with something that my daughter said to me. I have 8 children, and I am crazy about all of them, watching them grow and they are very funny. One of my daughters came up to me, it was a couple of months ago, and she said, Dad, could I please have $50? And I said, $50? You have a job, you're working. Why are you asking me for $50? Well, a little later, her brother came and pulled me aside and said, Dad, she asked for the money because she's trying to buy you and Mom a Christmas present. So I sent her $100. So I tell you that story just to say, a lot of times you want to know who you're talking with. And I learned from that, I want to ask more questions. If my daughter comes up and says, Can you send me $50? I don't want to immediately say no. I want to ask, Well, why are you asking for that? What are you going to do with that? Asking more questions. So I want to start out with you all of you beautiful, wonderful, my brothers and sisters. Could you tell me on the little reactions, do a little hand raise like, I'm going to do one, or maybe a thumbs up. So there's my thumbs up, right? If you could do a thumbs up if you are in the semifinals coming up in October.
Mr. Mike, the still club contests are going on. After the club contest is finished, then they will be sending it to the semi-final. So it may be
Okay,
starting from next month only. Okay, so
okay.
still people are not ready.
So everyone right now is
Yeah,
currently
everyone trying. They are
in
trying to
contests.
participate. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, that tells me what I need to know. The other thing is I want to be able in our time together, I have several things that I can share with you, but the main thing that I want to do is be able to address and talk to you about what you want to know. So if you would write, I'm going to tell you a little story, but while I do that, if you would type in the chat what your questions, is there a question that you really hope gets answered today? And as I watch the questions scroll up on the chat, then as I go through my prepared remarks, then I can make sure that hopefully I'm answering the questions that you really had coming to this meeting here today. So as you're putting your questions into the chat so I can see what you're most interested in today, I'll tell you a little bit about my speaking journey. It started when I was about 10 years old. I was part of a group that was a lot like a gavel club. It was a group of business professionals in the town that I grew up in. And I just wanted to be able to speak in front of other people. And so there were several of us that we got up and we told our stories and we talked about certain things, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that I talked way too long. I just kept going on and on. I think originally they gave me 5 minutes. I think I spoke almost 15 minutes that first time. I just could not be quiet. I could not close my mouth. It was very fun. But what I discovered was that I went on way too long. I said a lot of ahs and ums and filler words to the point it was distracting. And I went off on tangents. I would start talking about this and I would think about something else and I would start going down different roads. So I had someone a little later in my life who said, Mike, I know a group that can help you fix that. There's a Toastmasters club right down the street, and you could go in there and work on these different areas that you struggle with. So I went to college, I went on and I worked for a couple of US senators, United States senators who are government officials in the United States. And that was fun for a little bit, but then I decided I wanted to do business full time, and I had always studied economics and finance. I wanted to do that business. I started giving seminars about finance, and that grew. Today, I still do some financial seminars. I do a lot of professional public speaking to companies, helping them build better teams and use speaking and seminars to build those beginning businesses. So I really appreciate the questions that you're putting in the chat. I can see a lot of these about how not to stutter in table topics, about speaking to prove a point, developing confidence. So all of these questions really help me. What I'll do is start along the lines of talking about building confidence and work in stories to hopefully answer your questions along the way. And then I want to give some time really just to focus in on questions. Because confidence is one of those things that can help us all. What gets us to stand in front of a group? Years ago, what really was great speaking was someone with good posture and speaking with a deep voice in beautiful, flowery language. But as I travel around the world and I see people giving TED Talks, TEDx talks, I see influencers who are speaking on stages to companies, and I happen to speak at a conference when there are other very high qualified, high paid speakers who are also speaking at that conference. What really projects confidence and great speaking today is the ability to have a conversation in front of 500 or 5,000 people, coming across and being authentically you in that environment. And that takes practice, but it also takes mindset. So let's talk about some ways building that confidence that you can apply right where you are. It also helps you in school. It also helps you maybe get the job you want, or talk to the individual that you want to talk about. The first thing I would suggest to you in building confidence is recognizing that everything in life falls into one of two categories. They are only things you can control, or they are things you cannot control. And I would suggest that our confidence builds whenever we focus only on those things that we can control, and we get used to just being unattached or living with those things we cannot control. If you'd like to go back, somebody asked in the question, are there any good books that I would recommend? And hopefully I'll recommend several, because I love books, and I am a beneficiary of lots of good books. But the first one I would recommend is a book by someone who lived thousands of years ago, who was the emperor of ancient Rome, Marcus Aurelius. He wrote in his journal every night. Marcus Aurelius wrote, and after he died, that diary, that journal was found, it was published, and is now called Meditations. So if you were going to read one book, I might suggest you start with Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Marcus, in that book, so many different times, talks about being attached to things we cannot control, and that creates nervousness, that creates self-consciousness. It decreases our confidence whenever we're tied to things we cannot control. And if you think about it, it's a fool's game, because we're trying to do things, we're worried about things that there's no way we can control. It rests out here, and we're not able to do anything about that. And so to the degree that we can separate ourselves from those things we cannot control and only focus on things we can control, then our confidence increases, our confidence raises. So I'll tell you how this affected me in Toastmasters. I joined the Toastmasters International Conference probably 20 different times. I started whenever I was a young man. Now you'll hear some world champions, they enter the contest once and they won in that very given year. They were very naturally great speakers. And if you are a naturally great speaker, that is great. And I applaud you. I was not naturally a great speaker. I had to learn how to become a good speaker. And I tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed. But the failure part, whether I won a contest or not, that's in that realm of things I cannot control. And I would tell you, if you are in this contest and you do not win, that's not something you can control. There are a group of judges that look at your speech every time, and those group of judges have different things they like and don't like. You could give the same speech one day to a group of judges here, and you could win. You could give the same exact speech another day to a different group of judges and not win, because this group of judges has something other than what you are saying, other than your type speech, that they like better. And it's a subjective world. There are races like track meets or cricket matches where you have two teams in cricket that now here's my disclaimer. I know zero about cricket. I assume that there is a score at the end of the game. I assume that one team wins and one team loses. That is an objective measure that a cricket team will either win or lose based on the score. Or when two people are running a race, then you can measure who gets to the finish line first. That's an objective measure. In contests, you don't know what the judges are going to pick. And so that's in the realm of things you cannot control. If you tie your confidence to something you cannot control, you're not going to increase in confidence. But if you consistently tie your confidence to things you can control, then your confidence rises. So I joined the contest 20 different times. I lost at some level many different times. And we came up, I went to the international semifinals in 2013, and I came in second. I was just one place away from going to the international finals. And then I got back to the international semifinals again in 2015. And I had been constantly writing on my mirror, I am World Champion of Public Speaking 2000. I am World Champion of Public Speaking 2001. I am World Champion of Public Speaking 2002. And each of those years I lost and I lost and I lost. I finally got to the semifinals again in 2015. I was the last speaker. It was my favorite speech. And I did not even place. I didn't come in first, second, or third. And I was devastated. My confidence dropped all the way to the bottom. And I realized that my confidence was low because I was focusing on something I could not control. I gave the very best speech I could in that contest, but the judges did not like it as much as they liked 3 other speeches. I cannot control what the other judges liked or voted for. And so I switched. I started deciding that the only thing that would mean success or failure to me was, did I prepare as well as I could prepare? Did I try to serve the audience as much as I could serve? Did I focus on all the things I could control most? And that's what I would judge my confidence on. Not whether I won or lost, because I could not control that. Did I prepare as best I could? Did I serve the audience? Did I have gratitude for the audience for allowing me to speak to them? And as I did that, after 2015, my confidence soared, and I won the World Championship of Public Speaking in 2020. For 18 years, I lost, and my confidence was low because of that. But when I shifted to focus on things I can control rather than what I cannot control, my confidence soared, and that's when I ultimately won. So let's talk about you for just a minute. Let's think about all of you right now. You're in school. And if you're doing a writing project, a paper, you have to turn in a paper. You cannot control the grade that you ultimately get if the teacher thinks that that is an A plus or an A or a B paper. What you can control is how much you research, how many times you practice. Did you ask a parent or a mentor to read your paper and to give feedback? And if you do all those things, then the grade takes care of itself. But ultimately, if you don't get as high a grade as you wanted, your confidence can still be good because you focused on what you can control. Let's talk about a speech in Toastmasters. If you get up and you give a speech and you don't win a ribbon, or if you don't win in the contest, but you prepared as well as you can, then your confidence can be high. What about an athletic contest? If you go out and you do all of the things that you can control, but you still don't win, the secret is you will win at some point in the future, and your confidence can be high because you are doing everything you can control. So here, what are some of the things that you can control? Number one is you can control your preparation. You can control your preparation. So everyone right now is in the contest. They're getting ready. Some of you will move forward. Some of you will win and go on to the semifinals in October. Many of you will not win this time. And if you don't, then what I would say is you can be writing for the next time. But your preparation, even right now, while no matter where you are in your speech, probably your speeches are already written. Probably you're practicing them. But I'll tell you what my preparation looked like as I was getting ready for contests in the year that I won the World Championship. Our World Championship is in August. The beginning contest started in January. I started writing 2 speeches because I had to have 2 speeches if I was going to go to the finals. I'd never been to the finals before, but I wanted to prepare as if I would be in the finals. And so whenever I lost the year before, I started writing. So in September, October, November, I was writing my speeches. And the speech that took me all the way to the semifinals, we were driving back from a province or state. I live in Texas in America. There's a province called Arkansas that is a little west and north of my home. We were driving back from that. My wife was driving because she gets motion sick. So I was reading a book, and in reading a book, it talked about the author was talking about how he had a friend of his had an experience, a challenging experience as a young man. And it reminded me of a good friend of mine named Maria, who went through some challenging surgeries whenever we were in high school together. And I started thinking about that story. We got home and I immediately went into my computer and I wrote the entire speech out. So I would suggest that you always should be writing. If you take 15 minutes a day, even right now, even today, just take 15 minutes and write something, write a story, write what you think about. If you can't write anything or can't think about anything to write, then write about that. And if you're always reading, then there are always thoughts that are coming up that you can be writing about. So writing 15 minutes a day, that's one of the things you can control. If you write 15 minutes a day, what that does is that gets the creative centers of our mind, of our brain constantly going and constantly moving. Even if you aren't writing, even if you're writing your speech for next year, even if you're writing a speech to give to your local civic club, just 15 minutes a day. Everyone can do that. If you can't write 15 minutes a day, just write 10 minutes a day. But some writing that gets that flowing. So I wrote out my entire speech. Now I speak at about 114 words a minute with pauses. I love pauses. So a 7-minute speech is 800 words for me. When I first wrote out that speech, it was 1,500 words. So I knew I had to cut it back. If you write out your entire speech, you know if you're going to go too long or too short, and you can go in and play with the language, play with words. But write out your speech. I wrote out my speech the entire way. I cut it back to 7 minutes, which is 800 words for me. And then I created a mental outline. And I want to tell you the way I create mental outlines if you are thinking about that. The way that I create mental outlines is I think about walking into my house in the front door, and my introduction is something that's sitting right there inside my front door. So if I'm telling a story, let me see, if I'm telling a story about going to Chennai, India, and I want to start the speech by saying, I got to Germany and my flight was canceled. Then in my mind, I open my front door and there is a plane with a big flag of Germany sitting right inside my front door. Now that's a ridiculous scene, right? But it's so ridiculous that I remember it. Then my first point, I turn to my left, and that's where our dining room table is. And so I might say I had to be rerouted through Dubai, and I got to spend 18 hours in the Dubai airport. And I met this really interesting man in Dubai. So in my mind, I have him seated at the first place at that table. So do you get the idea? Whenever I'm giving the speech, then in my mind, I walk into my front door and there's a picture of a plane with a German flag. That reminds me that's how I want to start the speech. And then I turn to my left, and seated at the first spot in my dining room table is the man I met in Dubai. And that reminds me of that story. But I've already written it all out. I already know what the language is. So first I write it all out. Then I build this mental outline. And my mental outline is a picture of my first point inside my room, then a picture of my second point at my dining room table that I want to say. The different supporting points are pictures in my mind going around my dining room table. Then I go mentally into my kitchen, and standing around, there are pictures around my kitchen. So when I'm giving my speech, I'm mentally just walking through my house, seeing these pictures that I have placed mentally throughout my house, and it helps me remember my outline, and I can speak without notes. shot my confidence way up. I build that mental outline. I can stand in front of my audience and I don't have to have notes. And it's my house. So I remember it's the visual of where everything is. So point number one, write out the speech so you know how many words. Point number two, build your mental outline. Point number three is practice, practice, practice. So when I went into the contest, I started the contest in January at the club. And if I was going to make it to the final, I would give that speech in August. I had two speeches, remember, because I needed two if I was going to go to the finals. So every morning I get up and I get ready and I drive to work. Once I had written out my speech and I had my mental outline, I would get in my car, getting ready to commute to work. And the very first thing I did is out loud, I would run through my speech. And then I would run through the second speech. My commute to work, depending on traffic, is 20 minutes. It could be as much as almost an hour. But the very first thing I did, certainly enough time to go through two 7-minute speeches. I would do that in the morning. And then when I got in my car to drive back home in the afternoon or evening, the very first thing I would do is run both those speeches. By the time I got to the finals at the World Champion of Public Speaking, or when I was at the semifinals, I was highly confident because of my preparation. I had said out loud, given those speeches each at least 500 times. And so I knew my material. I knew it like the back of my hand. Not only did I given it 500 times, I would purposely put myself in positions where there was distraction. I would go walk on a trail downtown and I would speak it out loud and people would walk by looking at me because I'm just speaking out loud and I'm being animated. Sometimes people would bump into me, but what it gave me practice was if there were distractions that happened, then I could still be confident in giving that. And then I would hear something, I would read something. I was still writing 15 minutes a day. I would have a turn of phrase that I liked better than I was already saying, and it became a feedback loop. Once I got something better, I would go back in, put it in my speech, I would change my mental outline, and I would rehearse it, practice, practice, practice. So your preparation is the very first thing that you can do that is inside your control. The other thing I'd like to tell you is, before we stop for some other questions, is that having gratitude, your mindset, is the other high point of confidence. When I lost all those many years, my goal had been to win the championship. My goal had been to win. So if you think about it, I was focused on myself. I heard someone a long time ago, a great speaker, say, beginner speakers focus on themselves. Average speakers focus on the speech, but expert speakers focus on the audience. Expert speakers focus on the audience. And when I realized that when I had this goal that I would win the championship, I was focused on myself. I was keeping myself in that beginner type speaker. And so after 2015, what I decided was, I don't care if I win the World Championship anymore. What I care about is providing a speech that helps someone in my audience. And so every time I would go into a contest or stand up to speech. I actually did it today, but right before, right as you all were introducing me. I just always say a prayer to say thank you that I get to say something that helps at least one person in this audience. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I get opportunity to try to share like that. What it does is it puts me in a place of gratitude where I get to be focused on the audience, and I get to be focused on hopefully helping someone in that audience. It gets my mind off myself, which oddly enough does increase my confidence because I'm not self-conscious, right? I'm other conscious. A third thing that is well within our control is having a really strong vision. There is an admiral named Admiral Stockdale, and during a war, he's an American admiral. He was flying over the enemy territory and was shot down. He was put in prison, and later on, an author was asking him, "How did you continue to thrive even in a prison camp elsewhere?" And he said, well, the reason I was able to survive was I was not an optimist. What? I was able to survive because I was not an optimist? Wait a minute. How does that increase confidence? He said, well, the optimists said, it's okay, we'll be out by Christmas. And Christmas would come and go, and they would still be there. And then they'd say, it's okay, we'll be out by Easter. And Easter would come and go, and they'd still be there. And they died of a broken heart. He said, the way I was able to survive was I knew for certain someday I would get out back to my family, but it was not today. And so no matter how hard things got, I would survive and focus today because I knew without question someday I would get back to my family. So, and if he can do that in extreme circumstances like that, you and I can certainly have a vision. And that vision may be to go to college. That vision may be to build a business. That vision may be to win the World Championship of Public Speaking. And that is fine to hold that, but to hold it lightly. There's a lot of psychological research that says increasingly that if we approach a goal like that, say, it would be nice to be the world championship, to be the world champion of public speaking. But I'm fine. It's no big deal if it doesn't happen. I believe it will happen one day. But if it doesn't happen today, that's okay. I'm going to prepare, I'm going to be grateful, and I'm going to keep my vision. So at this point, I want to look back over questions or open it up to questions. And feel free to cut me off whenever we need to end, but I can stay longer than the next 5 minutes if anybody wants to stay, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
There is a very interesting question, Mike, which is if you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to your younger self before your first public speaking contest, what would it be and why?
I would go back and I would say, hey, Mike, lighten up. Don't make this a bigger deal than it is. You want to do your best, but that has to do with your preparation. Approach the audience with gratitude. But the main thing is have fun. Just have fun with it. If you go out there and you trip and you fall flat on your face, then you just created a great story. You have a great story. But if you don't fall on your face, you you do your best, and then you have something to work with, and you continue to build from there. That's what I would say to my younger self. I was a very serious a very serious child, and I worried a lot. And I had to I have a lot more fun these days, and I've had a lot more success since having fun. So that's what I would say is, hey, have fun with it. Just just have fun with it.
That's a great tip. So I think I've just put it in the chat window, lighten up. And I think there's some war going on in the chat. Somebody has asked a question, someone else copy paste that question, and they're like, you copied my questions. I've deleted all those. So I request everyone to, maybe hold your horses. And it's actually impossible for him to answer every single of your questions, especially Abdul Asis's, because he also wants to know the names of your sons and daughters, their age, and all that. I would say maybe, Mike, if you have your email ID, probably it's a better idea for them to send these questions by email, because I don't think you could answer, like they have put 8 questions in single chat. It's virtually impossible for you to take up that. So would you
Right.
mind sharing your email ID?
I do not mind sharing, and I can share my screen, can't I?
Okay.
Share.
Abdul
Okay.
Aziz, I think some of the questions you have asked is, I would say it's a little bit personal, like the names of sons and daughters. So I would feel maybe he might feel comfortable sharing it over an email rather than on a public platform like this. And also things like your favorite color, etc. But there is a question which Abdul has asked: how can I speak fluently while on a stage? How can I speak fluently while on a stage?
It's a great question. That's the reason that and the mental outline, that was not original to me. I heard that from a really good speaker who just spoke fluently. So the first thing I would say is create that mental outline where you're walking around your house. So when you have that mental outline in your head that you can just think through as you go, it's easier to move from one thing to the other. That's first. Then the second thing is doing what all of you are doing in your gavel clubs. It really is just a matter of practice. It really is. There really is no way for the average speaker, someone who was like I was, who needed to learn how to be a really good speaker, to the first time just do one thing and speak fluidly. You can help with this mental outline and writing it out first, but when you practice, 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 and whenever you fail a number of times, and you see that it did not kill you, your confidence increases, and you say, well, okay, then I can be myself. But it is that practice. That's why I ask gavel clubs and Toastmasters. And when I talk to businesses and civic organizations, I ask them, why isn't everyone in Toastmasters or gavel clubs? Because that practice is what gets us to speaking fluently. So good question. What I have here on the screen is a QR code I have a Substack, and you can contact me through Substack. And I'll also put an email up on the screen here in just a minute. But you could feel free to ask me, contact, there's a free subscription piece there, and if you choose the free version, and you can message me through Substack, and I could get that. And like I said, I'll put up an email here in a little bit. I don't mind sharing my kids' first names and their ages. So my oldest daughter is Madison, and she's now 33, 34. My second daughter is McKenna, and she's a little younger. My third child is Justice. He's my oldest son. My fourth child is Mason. She is 26. My fifth child is Jairus. He's 22. My sixth child is Journey. She is 21, and my seventh and eighth children, they're twins. Mercy, my daughter Mercy, and her twin brother Jakin, and they're 18. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
really
And I'm
expect
crazy about all
a
of them. They're
personal
funny.
question like this.
And I'm
But
glad
with
that,
Gavelius, you should expect anything, right? Expect the unexpected.
right. Oh, so
Now,
true.
there is a question from Fatima. She asks, if your voice could change one thing in the world, what would you use it for? If your
If my
voice could change one thing in the world, what would you use it for?
if my voice could change one thing in the world,
I
what
think
would I
it's more
use it
like
for?
she's the table topic master now.
Right. Honestly, if my voice could change one thing in the world, and this is what I try to speak about to businesses, to organizations, to Toastmasters a lot, I would help everyone obtain peacefulness, quite honestly. I think that we as humans are able to accomplish so much more than we believe we can, than we think we can. But also, so there's that. And I think what gets in the way of our accomplishing so much more is anxiety, is fear, because anxiety and fear stop us from trying things. So I'm an economist. I see people who start businesses. I invest in businesses. I see people who accomplish massive things. I'm going to tell you all the secret. The secret to accomplishing great things, the secret to building huge businesses, the secret to success. Try things. Try lots of things. I promise you, I've done the research. I continue to do the research. It continues to do the same thing. People who try a lot of things, they try and it fails, and they try and it fails, and they just keep trying. Something hits, something, and there are very few people that try the first thing and it just succeeds. But it's the people who try things and don't stop trying that they're the ones that have success. They're the ones that have achievement. But what keeps us from trying is it hurts whenever it doesn't work. And we call it failure. We call it failure. It's not failure. It's only information. It's only learning. It is the pathway to our next success. If I went down, if I'm hiking a mountain and I go up one path and it's a dead end. So I go back down and I go another path and it's a dead end. So I come back down and I go another path, and there is a path to the top of the mountain. But what happens is we go up one path and it's a dead end, and we say, oh, I'm not worthy. I should have picked the other path. I can't believe I didn't know the future. I can't believe I didn't. We beat ourselves up for not knowing things that there's no way for us to know. My friends, it's just trying. And so if I can help people be peaceful, then hopefully they just flow like water. And the other thing is that, do you know how many planets there are in the universe? I read somebody, I read a physicist recently who did the math. Think think about the last time you stood on a beach or you stood in a desert, you stood somewhere where there was a lot of sand. Did you pick up a handful of sand? Did you look at every little grain of sand in your hand? Do you know for every single grain of sand on planet Earth, there are 1 billion planets? 1 billion planets for every grain of sand on planet Earth. My friends, we can give ourselves a break. We it doesn't matter if we trip and fall. It doesn't matter if we fail 1,000 times. There may be life on one of those billion planets. They're never going to know we failed once. And so it just doesn't matter if we fail trying things. And when we feel peaceful, we can let ourselves go and have fun and play at life. And that's where fun things happen. That's where accomplishments happen. So if I could, with my voice, if I could help that message seep deep inside every single person I get to talk with, then I would feel like it was a life well spent. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much. There is a question from Dew from Thailand, which I would like to combine with a question from Avni Pillai. Dew asks, how can I have some interesting openings for my speech? And Avni also asks something like that, like how can I make my speech more impactful? I'm just trying to combine a few questions asked by Avni, like how to make a speech more captivating. What are the main things I would need to focus on to make my speech more enjoyable. So I'm just combining these two Gavilia's questions, Gavilia Avni and Gavilia Dew.
All right. And I am putting my email on, and then I'm going to share real quickly here again. Okay. So are you able to see the email there also? If email is easier for you than the Substack, feel free to email me at that email. And if I don't get to your question, I'd be glad to try to answer your question because I believe
sure.
I believe in the gavel. Now, Substack, I answer the Substack. I'm on more than that email, but I can do both. Okay, so I'm trying to remember the question you asked. You mind asking the question again?
Yeah. The question was from Dew from Thailand. She asked, how can I have some interesting openings for my speech? And Avni asked, how can I make my speech more impactful or remarkable? What are the things that I could focus on?
Oh, great. One of the good openings, if you think about some of the best movie openings that you've seen, and I'm trying to think about if I've seen one lately. The ones that I've seen the most recently have been the series called The Crown. Have you seen The Crown? And you haven't. Okay. Let me think. Let me see. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Think about a movie that opens where you're right in the middle of a scene and immediately your brain is saying, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? Why is that person doing that? What's going to happen? Why is she there? Why is he holding that? Why is he dressed like that? Okay. If you could open your speech like that, then that grabs the audience attention right away. Let me think of an example.
Some startling statement. Are you asking us a question?
Oh, I'm thinking of an example of a way
okay.
to I walked into my class and she kissed me.
Huh.
I didn't even know who this was. Okay. That could be, if I started a speech like that, all of a sudden, are you saying, wait a minute, what's going on? If that's the speech about a person who became a good friend, a good friend of mine, or if I start a speech saying, I was just going for an easy ride on a horse, but now the horse was racing toward a cliff. Okay. So maybe that's a story about horseback riding. What is important is that you very quickly tell your audience why you're telling them the story. And so an example of like the horseback riding cliff might be, when do you know it's time to change your friend group?
Mm.
It reminded me, that's what I was thinking 2 years ago when I was just going for a very easy horseback ride, but now the horse was galloping toward a cliff. And the story may tell then about when you need to jump from a horse, jump from a racing horse. And the analogy may be when you need to jump from a toxic friend group. So, and then the second part of that question was impactful messages. Was that, what was the second
Yes,
part of this?
how to make my speech more impactful.
The two easy answers are, rather than making declarative statements, make the example a story. That's one. And adding humor. Humor is one of the things, it's hard to do, but the more we build that muscle, then it makes speeches very impactful. Humor builds rapport with an audience, and it causes people to remember our speeches. So rather than like for example, rather than me saying, as artificial intelligence grows, live events are going to become more popular. I could tell you a story about a friend of mine in the music business where they used to sell the music, CDs, streaming. They'd sell the music and they would go on tour. They'd have concerts for a very low price. Now they give the music away for free and they make their money by a high ticket price at concerts. Does that make sense? So stories, humor, and then the third thing I'd say is, if you are constantly reading and you are constantly writing your 15 minutes a day, then you're going to notice in yourself what makes you laugh, what moves you emotionally, what makes you say, when you read something. And that's great content for impactful speeches.
Wonderful, wonderful. Mike, actually, we have a lot of questions. I don't know whether we have enough time. So I'm actually putting your email ID in the chat along with subject line Global Gavel Club event related questions. So there are also certain funny questions like, which I think, it's not not probably in the topic, like they are asking, you said try again. So there's a student who asks, if you catch a snake and then if you let it go and if you try catching. So I would like to have a word of caution added to the Gaveliers. Mike did not ask you to catch a snake. Mike asked you to practice, try again in terms of communication skills, not to do dangerous stuff like catching a snake. So kindly don't misconstrue his words. He did not say that. He was saying in the context of public speaking, and of course in life, like good things like maybe studying or hiking, of course only under parental supervision if you're under the age of 18. You need to get your parents' consent and also check if it's legal in the country you are staying in. For example, in some countries, at the age of 16, you could drive a car, but in some countries like India, it's illegal. So check with your parents. When in doubt, check with your parents. Don't say Mike said try. Check with your parents, check with your teachers, check the law in your country, and then only try whatever you want to try. Okay. I have a question from Path. I think Path was asking, uh, without notes, how can I get my speech right? Because when he repeats facts word for word, it sounds a bit robotic. And when I try to put emotions, I forget the words. These are his precise words. So, what is your take on that, Mike?
Well, first, I would tell you, I appreciate the question, and you're not alone. When I first started, when I was trying to learn to be a better speaker, I struggled with exactly the same thing. And most people do. Most people have the same question. They struggle with the same thing. So here's how I overcame it. Here's how I would recommend you overcome it. And it goes in stages. So when you're first starting out, then notes is fine. Having notes in front of you on note cards or on piece of paper, that's just fine. And that's where I would start. I would suggest so when you write out your facts and the numbers and data, go ahead and write that out. That's first. And if you were having to make a presentation in front of your class today, then you have your notes there and you can work on them. Your first step would be to try to look at the audience more than you look at your notes. Okay. The second step would be, if you have a little more time, try to take that data and turn it into a story. So I could have told you there were 74 septillion planets in the universe, right? That's a data point. What I did instead was I asked you, do you know how many planets there are in the universe? Pick up a handful of sand, and for every grain of sand on Earth, there are 1 billion planets. That's a story. People remember that story. They forget the numbers. So that's the next step, would be putting your data in a story or an anecdote or an analogy that people can remember. And I would put that in your notes also. Then you have that in front of you. The third level next, then I would suggest the mental outline. So if I have to remember numbers on, if it's my first point always goes around my dining room table. And if I have to remember numbers, I close my eyes and visualize sitting in the first seat the person that I want to tell the story about, holding a big poster board that has those numbers written on them. Now, if you will visualize that and you think about that, you'll be surprised how you will remember those numbers visually, and you won't have to have them in your notes. But to keep confidence high, I'd go ahead and have those on your notes in front of you. But I bet you won't look at your notes. You'll be able to look at the audience and remember the mental outline, the visual outline there. Little by little, as you practice that, you go from step to step, and you will have fewer notes on paper. Whenever I speak and I have a lot of numbers, that I really need to remember, I'll have those numbers on a piece of paper and I'll need to refer to them every now and again. So it depends on your situation about whether you want to completely come away from notes or not. But there is no other answer than just practice over time. But you can be assured and have confidence that as you practice, it just gets better and better and easier and easier.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mike. We have so many questions. I think we are inundated with a flurry of questions from the young audience. I would request the young audience to understand that we are running a bit behind time. So maybe some of the questions you can send it as an email, and kindly bear with Mike because he does have a regular job other than answering our emails. So please give him some time because I know with them when you send an email by tomorrow, you get 3 gentle reminders. Please respond to my. So there's a guy, I think it's Austin, I guess. Not Austin, Anthony Austin or someone who asks, are you friends with a mathematician? One of the world's greatest mathematician. And there was Tahani, who wanted to know what was your career setback. I would say you can actually email him and find that out. But I'll go with a question from Tahani again. She asks, do you have a favorite quote that inspires your public speaking journey? Do you have a favorite quote that inspires your public speaking journey?
I do. I'll say before I answer the quote question on the email, if you email me, please start the subject line with Gavel Club, something about Gavel Club. I
Yeah, I
saw
have
you at
put
the
that
Gavel
in the
Club.
chat end. We have
Oh,
put it like
perfect.
Global Gavel Club event related questions. So kindly put that because Mike gets important emails from businesses, CEOs, senators, and all those people. So your messages should not get lost. Hence, please put Global Gavel Club event related questions.
Yeah. Yes, perfect. Thank you. My regarding presentations, I would say one of my favorite quotes was the one I shared with you earlier, that a beginner speaker focuses on him or herself, a average speaker focuses on the speech, an expert speaker focuses on the audience. I think that has helped my speaking tremendously over the years. A second quote was someone who gave me an evaluation in my very first Toastmaster club, a guy named Don Reynolds. He was a professional speaker. He was a philanthropist. He built a large radio. He had a lot of radio stations, a radio station business, and he was an evaluator one time. And I gave a speech where I really I didn't talk about myself. My speech was not an authentic speech. And he told me, he said, Mike, whenever you do not crack your chest open and share your authentic self, you waste your audience's time. And that was hard to hear at the time, but it was one of the most valuable things I ever heard, because since then, I always try to say, am I really showing my authentic self to help the audience? The final quote, the one that I grinned about, is a quote I just love this. It was by a 4th century BC Chinese philosopher named Wu Xin. And Wu Xin said, expectation is the grandfather of disappointment. The world can never own a person who wants nothing. So now that may sound antithetical, that may sound counterintuitive to speaking, but if you think about what I was saying earlier, coming to a speech with gratitude that I get to speak in front of this audience, trying to get my mind off myself onto serving an audience. The world can never own a person who wants nothing. If I don't want to do a good job, if I don't want to need someone's esteem, then I really am just focused on the audience and serving that way. And so if I mess up my words, it's okay. So but the main one I would probably leave you with is the beginner focuses on him or herself. The average speaker focuses on the speech, but the expert speaker focuses on the audience.
Excellent, excellent. I just typed it out for the young Gaveliers. The beginner focuses on himself or herself. The average speaker focuses on the stage, and expert speakers focus on the audience. Actually, I have a last question from the members of the audience. There are also certain people who have asked, if a witch were to curse you, that you'll have to speak forever. I'm asking all of those Gaveliers, please send these emails directly to Mike. Because these are very interesting. I'm sure it will make him laugh. It'll make him think too. And there are people who have asked, like, did you always want to become a great speaker when you were a kid, etc., etc.? Please do send him these questions. But we will end this session with a tip from Mike for connecting with audience. There are a couple of people like Fatima and someone else who had asked how to connect with the audience, how to handle questions from the audience if you don't have a solid answer for it.
How to connect
with the audience, how to connect with the audience. And the second part of the question is how to handle questions from the audience if you don't have a solid answer for it.
Oh, yeah. So how to connect with the audience. The best and most simple answer is eye contact. And that's whether it's virtually or in person. Now, in person, that's easier because it's what we teach in Toastmasters and Gavel. I'm sure in Gavel Clubs too, is that a lot of times when you're speaking, you could just scan the audience. But what's better is to look at one person and speak to one person for a little bit, and then look at a second person and speak to a second person, and so on and so on. You might notice that I try to do the same thing virtually. I'm looking at the camera, even though if I were looking at the audience members, I'd be looking down here. But if I'm talking down here, it doesn't feel as connected as if I'm talking right here. So looking, eye contact there, but then also the practice of being your authentic self and having feeling like you're continuing to have that thought in your head of, I'm just having a conversation with this one person, right? So doing that. If I'm getting questions from an audience, from the audience that I don't know how to answer it, I've just seen that authenticity today is so much better than anything else. If I don't know an answer, I want to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'd be glad to do research and come back to you. Or I might tell them the answer used to be on that. I get asked a lot of financial questions that have to do with tax laws. And I can say, well, the answer a couple of years ago, the answer was this. I don't know exactly what that answer is today because the laws change, but I will go research that and come back to you. There are also times whenever people ask me a question and I'll say, well, let's think about that. Let's talk through that. If you did not know how to answer a question, I don't know, what are some ways that we could handle that? And just open it back up to the audience and make it a group activity You engage the audience that way. There are others who might in your audience who might know the answer and they could toss things in. It also gives you time to think. But I've heard too many speakers who try to come in and make up an answer when they really don't know the answer, and the audience picks up on that, and it decreases trust. So authenticity builds trust. I just think today that's more valuable than having a quick ready answer. So great questions. Thank you.
Great questions, Gavilius. And guests, I think there are some guests who have been messaging how to join a Gavel Club. I would request you to email us, either Swikumar Paiser or one of the Gavel Club counselors. I'm sure you will know Swikumar Paiser's number. Maybe we'll request Swikumar Paiser to send his email ID in the chat window so that if you want to join Gavel Club, I'm putting my email ID as well. And I request people to write in their lessons learned from this session in the chat window. So Attila Mujib says, this session was truly inspiring, Mr. Carr. Thank you for reminding us what real speaking power feels like. And thank you to the Global Gavel Club for giving us this amazing opportunity. I'm grateful to have been here today. I'm so happy that
that's very
Attila,
kind.
yeah, Attila embraced this tips you gave. You said have an attitude of gratitude towards the audience. She has an attitude of gratitude towards the speaker. That's so cute and so awesome. Now it's time, I think, to call our distinguished Toastmaster Dhanu Rajwani for the vote of thanks. Distinguished Toastmaster Dhanu Rajwani is a person whom I have met in several clubs, and I also had the privilege of calling her for an education session as part of my UK club. She is an inspiring leader driven by a vision to empower individuals with courage, confidence, and self-esteem. Following in the footsteps of her father, a renowned mentor, she founded Voice Out Gavel Clubs for the youth and ACE Speakers Toastmaster Club for the adults. During the pandemic, her determination led to the creation of Global Youth Gavel Clubs with collaboration with distinguished Toastmaster Sri Kumar Pai. Now, this Global Youth Gavel Clubs Association has grown from 20 to over 200 clubs worldwide. With over 2 decades of experience, distinguished Toastmaster Dhanu Rajwani continues to inspire and lead with passion and purpose, a true force to reckon with. And she is from the beautiful country of Mauritius. So, distinguished Toastmaster Dhanu Rajwani, I would call her the ageless speaker because I was truly astonished one fine day when she revealed her age. I'm like, oh my God, what do you do? I think that's her youthful spirit, her cherubic spirit that helps her stay young, energetic, and so passionate. Over to you, distinguished Master Sri Dhanu Rajwani.
DTM Manju, thank you so much for this awesome introduction. It's really awesome. I don't know whether I deserve it or not. I just do what comes to me. And that's it. And now, all you members that are on this platform today, can you all switch on your cameras, each and every one of you? Switch on your cameras. I'm sure DTM Mike Carr wants to see each and every one of you here. All your smiling faces, all your questioning faces. Switch it on, everyone. Now, once all your cameras on, put your right hand up, your left hand up, put both up. Okay. Now bring it together to give DTM Mike Carr a huge, huge round of applause. Can we do that? A huge round of applause. More than deserving of this because you've been such a wonderful speaker and you've had such a wonderful audience. I'm sure you have touched each and every child that has been in this platform today. Thank you so, so much for that. And taking our main takeaways from your talk today are just practice, practice, and more practice. I think that's the main takeaway for every Gavalier. Practice, practice, and more practice. You want to be a celebrity, you want to be anything that requires a skill management with perfection, practice, practice, and more practice. Nothing else except practice will get you there. Am I right? Give me a thumbs up if I'm right. Yay. Are you ready to practice that? Because yesterday only I was telling all my Gavaliers, you need to practice. Without practice, you won't reach anywhere. You want to be a great communicator? Practice. You want to be a great leader? Practice. And practice will only get you where you want to go. Yeah. You have been absolutely amazing, DTM Mike Carr, with your stories and your little tips that have been coming in here and ever so often that have caught the attention of the audience that are making them ask so many questions again. Each tip of yours is bringing more questions and more questions. And it's good to have children that ask questions. I feel it's really good when children ask questions, but the only thing is time. We don't have so much time to answer all their questions, right? Hopefully, they will connect with you and you can answer their questions in time. No rush for it. Someday, one day, you'll answer their questions. Don't expect answers the very next day, right? One day, DTM Mike Carr will answer all your questions, right? Good job. Do you remember the stories of how DTM Mike Carr said to do your speech with confidence? Visualize. Visualization is very important. And just keep up that mental outline and, of course, practice again. Most important is preparation. 15 minutes a day doesn't take much time, does it? 15 minutes is not much. Maybe just 15 minutes less from your Instagram or your social media or your Twitter or Facebook. So just 15 minutes a day, put that away and start working on your goals of being great speakers, great communicators, great leaders. This is what we want to be in the years to come. And you can start now. You all are so lucky you'll have this platform. We did not have it when we were growing. When I was growing, I was pushed into every talk. You go into the talk, you do the debate, you give the speech. Like that, I became very mic happy. But when I joined Toastmasters, I learned how much more there is still to learn over here. So much learning. And today, at this age also, I'm still learning from DTM Mike Carr. So much more learning. So keep learning, young Cavaliers, and keep up your gratitude. Very important. You're going for an exam, you're going for a test, you're going for a speech contest, whatever it is. Say a small prayer of gratitude that you have such a wonderful audience to be listening to you. We have such wonderful people who are correcting your papers. A small prayer of gratitude will take you a long way. And one thing, DTM Mike Carr, I agree with you 500% is lighten up. Enjoy the journey. Have fun. That's what's important. Have fun along the way. It's so important. And before I leave, patience that you've had with our children and their questions, unending, never-ending questions. I hope their questions keep coming and they keep growing from their questions because questions make the child grow. So hopefully you'll be able to answer their questions and they will be greater speakers than all of us, greater leaders than us also. Remember, a great speaker, a beginner focuses on himself, an average speaker focuses on their speech, and an excellent speech, exceptional speaker will focus on the audience. Audience, yes. Okay. So when you're writing a speech, focus on the audience because the audience is always there to know what is in there for me. What am I going to gain from here? So focus on the audience. Even your stories should be audience focused. Right? And we are looking forward to so many more great leaders and exceptional communicators in this world today. Take care and all the very, very best. Over to you, DTM Sri Kumar Pai. And thank you so much once again, DTM Mike Carr, for being with us on this platform and helping us, helping our children so much. And we are also learning in the process. Thank you so much. Over to
Thank
you,
you.
DTM
Thank
Mike
you so
Kumar.
much,
Thank
distinguished chess
you,
master
Dhanu
Dani.
Rajwani, for the
Yeah.
proposing vote of thanks. Dear Mike, I really would like to appreciate your dedication, your speaking with these children, spending your valuable time for this Gavin. Really appreciate that, and sharing your thoughts, your experiences. The main thing I would like to take is that concentrate on what you can control. That's something great lesson. Concentrate on what you can control. That is something really I like that particular stressing that point.
Yes,
Thank you very much
very good.
for being with us today, Mike. Please give a big round of applause to Mike. And let us have a photograph. May I request everyone to switch on your camera? Everyone, please switch on your camera. Let's have a group
And
photograph.
Abdul Aziz says,
I
if
already
ever
took photograph in
I
between, but
become,
still we have one more photograph. Everyone, please switch on your camera. Everyone. Okay.
Abdul Aziz says, if ever I become a public speaking world champ, I'd include you, Mike, as the one who gave me inspiration to become like you, Mike. And there are other people too pouring in their words of
Ready,
gratitude.
ready,
Oh, that
one,
is very
two,
nice.
three. Yeah. We have one more
Cheers.
page. One more page is there. Second page. Ready? Sit properly, everyone. Show a thumb. Ready? One, two, three. Thank you. I think we'll
So we,
close the session now because our actually we meant our session for 1 hour, maybe 15 minutes. We have started little late, maybe 10 minutes we late. We compensated that. We had our session for 1 hour 45 minutes. Something great. Once again, thank you very much. And Manju, you want to say anything, and let's close the session.
I would just like to read out Uyo's message from Nigeria. Uyos is a Gavelier from Nigeria. He writes, it's Uyiose. So forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. This session was truly helpful, and I will use these tips, tricks, and techniques in the future. Once again, thank you from Nigeria. So I think this kind of sums up everything that you just taught us all, not just the Cavaliers, like Danu Rajwani and DTM Srikumar said, you taught each and every one of us who spend, I would say, an indelible 1.5 hours with the champion. And I'm sure this will remain a moment to cherish in our life when we look back, the time we spend with moments with Mike. Something like that, right? Moments with the champ. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. And I'm sure you'll have to hire a new secretary. I'm sorry you'll have to hire a new secretary with the kind of questions coming in from the Gaveliers. Your email box is going to be inundated by tomorrow. Apologies.
No, it's all good.
Thank you so much, Mike. It was our
Oh,
pleasure.
Take care.
Thank
Okay,
you
thank you
all.
very
Have
much.
a
God bless us
wonderful
all.
evening and day.
Thank you.
Wonderful evening.
We'll
Yes.
close this officially close the session now. Thank you once again. Thank you, Mr. Mike, for accepting our invitation and for being with us and spending more than 1.5 hours. Thank you very much.
Well, it's my pleasure, and blessings on all of you,
God
all
bless
of
us
our
all.
global family. Blessings, blessings.
Yes. Blessings.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we
Thanks,
now
y'all.
declare this meeting closed, and others who couldn't get their questions answered, please remember when you
If you open
email
the
Mike,
question to the
yeah,
Gavin, no, today we cannot finish our session.
yeah,
So many people will be asking so much. That's why we had some
yeah.
control.
That's why we are
Just
sending
selected question only
emails.
we asked. Even for
Yeah,
that, it was 1 hour 45 minutes.
yeah.
Okay.
We are immensely grateful for Mike for extending his time and for patiently answering even questions about names of his sons and daughters. That is totally unexpected. Yeah, I know.
Ah, that's
Okay.
But in
Thank you very
today's
much.
age
that's
and time,
fun.
8 children is a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're curious. They're curious to no, they're curious to know, what
Yeah.
are their
And
names
Yeah.
8
and are
children
they,
living together must be a lot of fun.
yeah.
It
And
is a lot of
also,
fun. Yeah, and a
yeah,
lot
and
of them are
maybe
funny also, so we
Yeah.
laugh a lot.
That's the
maybe
best thing.
they're also noting the names because probably your children also might be following the father's footsteps to become world champions. Probably that's why they are noting their names.
I
Okay.
think the only one who wants to do that is my daughter Mercy, the
Okay.
girl twin, and
18-year-old.
right,
18-year-old.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think.
easily she can go on to it with you behind her. She can easily do it.
Well, thank you, thank you. I will tell her that. I'll tell her
Yes.
you said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
She
y'all.
can.
Wonderful, wonderful
Okay.
humans.
Thank you very much.
Hope you have
Bye.
a great
Thank you
day.
so much.
Thank
Thank you
Thank you.
so
I'm closing
much.
the session now. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.